What if the red carpet flashbulbs were really warning lights? Imagine a music empire so dazzling that no one noticed the cracks forming beneath the marble floors. Tonight, we pull back the velvet rope on Sean Diddy Combs and his eldest son, Justin, to reveal a story of promises, power, and a weekend that allegedly turned a stranger's dream into her worst nightmare. Prosecutors say the mogul who once sold "no way out" as a mantra may have built hallways with no exits at all. But the headlines only hint at the darkness. Snapchats that didn't vanish, masked visitors called pops, seized baby oil caches large enough for a supermarket aisle, and an assistant who says he was ordered to move like SEAL Team 6. Stick around, because each layer peels back something stranger than the last, and the final twist may force us to rethink how celebrity power shields and sometimes destroys. It started, the lawsuit claims, with a ping on Snapchat in 2017. Justin Combs allegedly slid into the DMs of a 20-something who dreamed of working in entertainment. Flattered, she sent the playful photos he requested. Then came the lure. Fly to LA for the weekend. Dad's connections can open every door. Those words, prosecutors say, were the bait on a gilded hook. Friends warned her, Snapchat isn't as ephemeral as people think. Courts can pull the metadata straight off the servers. Just ask Tristan Thompson, whose disappearing messages reappeared in a paternity suit. She boarded the plane anyway, picturing studios and red carpets. Instead, a black SUV whisked her to a Beverly Hills mansion none of her contacts could find on Google Maps. Yet the true shock wasn't the silence outside, it was the silence inside, after the locks clicked shut. And by sunrise, the mansion wasn't empty anymore. Friday night passed in airy conversation and expensive takeout. Saturday? She asked when they'd head out to explore. Justin's reply, according to her sworn statement, was a flat no. Liquor flowed. Weed, she says, felt laced. And then came colorful pills that blurred the chandelier's crystals into halos. By dusk, 3 men in masquerade masks arrived. One moved with a swagger she recognized from 1,000 award show clips. Justin called him Pops. Prosecutors now say that man was Diddy himself. Security cameras were nowhere in sight, or perhaps hidden. Either way, she claims the doors stayed bolted. Promises of a producer meeting turned into threats. You'd better let this happen. She tried to pivot the conversation back to career talk. The laughter behind the masks drowned her out. But the worst wasn't the demand. It was how long the night refused to end. Because dawn only ushered in a darker game. The lawsuit alleges a marathon of abuse that spanned from Saturday night until midday Sunday. 3 masked men, 1 incapacitated guest, countless violations, some too graphic for YouTube guidelines. At the heart of it lies a phrase repeated in court filings and media coverage: freak-offs. Federal prosecutors say Diddy's circle used that term for drug-fueled sessions choreographed like twisted stage shows. During raids on Combs' Miami and LA homes in March 2024, agents seized narcotics, firearms, and, most chilling, more than 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant, allegedly stockpiled for such events. The plaintiff claims she was told photos she'd sent on Snapchat could ruin her if she spoke out. The carrot was still a promised job on a television set. On Monday, a driver dropped her at LAX with a blank ticket and a warning text. Let's talk gigs when things calm down. She flew home, convinced no one would believe a weekend that sounded like a horror film, yet someone else inside the mansion was keeping mental receipts, and he would bring those notes to a federal courtroom. Enter Brendan Paul, Diddy's former personal assistant. Under prosecutorial immunity, Paul told jurors that his job from 2022 to 2024 included buying marijuana, ketamine, and Tusi, stocking hotel suites with baby oil, and prepping so-called Wild King nights. He recalled a Coachella after-party where Diddy allegedly asked him to test drugs for potency. Paul said the mogul wanted his staff to move like SEAL Team 6. Text messages shown in court featured Diddy requesting Xan, shorthand for Xanax. Paul insisted drug procurement was a minor part of his duties, yet acknowledged rolling joints in Combs's garage and cleaning up suites after multi-day events. He was arrested in March 2024 with cocaine in a Goyard bag. Cocaine, he now says, belonged to Diddy. Charges vanished after a diversion program, but his testimony became dynamite. Jurors heard how Paul was fired for forgetting a Lululemon fanny pack, then rehired days later. He described Wild King nights, lasting until staff booked IV fluid drips for dehydrated guests. One line landed like a grenade. When asked about loyalty to Combs today, he sighed. It's complicated. And while Paul's words echoed through the courtroom, a different drama unfolded in the corridors of law offices, because the most flamboyant lawyer on the case suddenly stepped away. Texas attorney Tony Buzbee made headlines for representing over 100 alleged victims, including minors, and for lawsuits that once roped in Jay-Z. But in March 2025, Buzbee filed motions to withdraw from 15 federal cases against Diddy after admitting he wasn't properly admitted to the Southern District of New York. Critics howled publicity stunt, while supporters insisted it was strategic. State cases in Nevada and California still had his name on the letterhead. In open letters, Buzbee claimed more than 120 accusers stood ready to testify, hinting at a network of enablers stretching from accountants to travel agents. Combs's lawyers fired back, calling the suits shameless attempts at a cash grab. The withdrawal complicated the plaintiff roster. Some cases stalled, others transferred to new counsel. Yet the swirl of filings kept media interest soaring, and every headline dragged Combs Enterprises sponsors into crisis PR mode. Meanwhile, outside the courthouses, social feeds erupted, revealing a public torn between outrage and disbelief. Since the FBI raids, streaming platforms muted Diddy playlists and liquor partners froze deals. Hashtags like #FreakOffFiles trended for days after each court leak. But inside the trial gallery, family members projected unity. Justin, Christian, and Sister Chance sat shoulder to shoulder behind defense counsel, while their grandmother Janice denounced the charges as a public lynching. The Washington Post tallied over 70 civil SA suits filed since November 2023, an avalanche that would bury most reputations. Yet diehard fans point to Combs's philanthropic record and question the timing of claims. Skeptics note that similar arguments once shielded other fallen icons, until documentary evidence toppled them. Sponsors, reading the market, mostly chose silence. Justin's own image took hits long before the 2025 lawsuit. Reports of mansion bans over wild parties and an alleged yacht incident from 2022 still lurk in court dockets. Even when he was dismissed from Lil Rod's civil RICO case on a technicality, critics saw it as a dodge, not an exoneration. But to grasp how the Combs narrative grew teeth, we have to zoom out and see that this is only one bead on a longer string of allegations. Cassie Ventura's 2023 lawsuit, settled in hours for a rumored 8-figure sum, opened the floodgates. Former Danity Kane singer Dawn Richard now claims she saw Combs strike partners with frying pans and threaten witnesses into silence. Rapper Kid Cudi testified that Diddy bombed his Porsche after a dating dispute, a story once dismissed as urban legend. Add to that a 2016 hotel assault caught on security cameras, and an indictment describing racketeering acts dating back to 2008. Prosecutors portray Combs as a ringleader who wielded fame like gravity, pulling aspiring artists and employees into an orbit where saying no meant vanishing gigs, or worse. Defense lawyers countered that these were consensual swingers club lifestyles, painting the mogul as a target for opportunists chasing settlements. They highlight inconsistencies, withdrawn suits, and the disappearance of attorney Buzbee from federal dockets. Jury deliberations are still weeks away, but the cultural jury already weighs Combs's legacy album by album. And now, as closing arguments loom, The question shifts from did it happen to what happens to the empire if a verdict says it did. 15 years to life. That's the sentence Diddy faces if the racketeering counts stick. Yet the real penalty may be the collapse of a brand once synonymous with flossy champagne ads and feel-good dance floor hits. Either outcome forces a reckoning. Can an industry built on star power afford to look away when the spotlight reveals a crime scene? For Justin Combs, the shadow is longer than any billboard. No matter how the civil cases resolve, the narrative of a father-son freak-off lives forever on the internet. Recruiters, once dazzled by his last name, now Google the allegations first. And for viewers, artists, interns, dreamers, this saga is a caution sign flashing in neon. Promises of fame can morph into chains if no one checks who holds the key. So as the jury retires and the music fades, remember, sometimes the loudest beat in the club covers the sound of a door locking. Listen closely, question everything, and never trade your boundaries for backstage passes, because the next invitation could come with a price no chart topper can pay.